All right, so what about now? Let me just check my settings again. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'm getting, there we go. Yeah, it just wasn't registering it for some reason. But I think I'm good now. I think I'm good. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I had to leave and come back in and see what the fuck was going on with that shit. So, and I thought that I wasn't gonna have any of my cool stuff, but there's my cool stuff. Yes. All right. And then I can just zoom out a little bit. But yeah. So I'm sorry. We can start over here. Was talking about the sexual slavery amongst men. And granted, there is going to be some guys who are into that sort of thing. They're going to be they like being on the bottom ends. They like being the bottom, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Like if guys want to do that, they can be the bottom. They can yes. Hang on. So, and that's okay, right? There's plenty of guys in the world who they enjoy the idea of a dominant woman, or just not having to be in charge of like everything in the bedroom all the time. And that's perfectly fine, like in the realm of taking action, like who's the top, who's the bottom, whatever. Okay. And sometimes this fluctuates, it goes back and forth, and that's okay too. What I'm talking about, though, is the slavery that happens in your mind. And this is the part that is destructive. Mostly for the idea that whether you're top or bottom, if you have this kind of pull, if you have this sort of slavery going on, it can control you. And whoever has that thing, which, in this case, it's women, and their pussy or whatever kind of pleasure that you can derive from them, then that means that they're the one who has power over you. Now, granted, again, like if you love that idea that a woman has that kind of power, that's great, but it really should be worked out. It should be consensual between the two people. But if it's not, and you don't even have anything going on with a woman, then you are just subject to that power. And it's not a power that's ever been established, negotiated, figured out, fleshed out, and what this looks like. It's just you're already in that position. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about as far as being in that position of weakness, Hey there, kitten. Feel free to do what I told you to do. But yeah, so I wanted to read this a little bit about the topic, and we'll get into this. So, most men, they understand erotic power they misunderstand erotic power because they confuse desire with hunger. And they believe that wanting a woman intensely is the same thing as being erotically compelling, and it's not. In fact, the opposite is often true. Erotic authority is not built on how much a man wants a woman. It's built on how little he needs her response to remain whole. Sexual neediness is not about libido. It's about dependence. It's the quiet, often unspoken belief that a woman's desire validates a man's worth. When that belief exists, it leaks into everything. His tone changes, his posture changes, his timing changes, his patience disappears. His presence becomes slightly off balance, slightly urgent, slightly grasping. Women may not consciously label this as neediness, but they feel it immediately as pressure. And this is what you can see amongst men, I think, during a certain age, like 20s to up to like mid 30s, maybe even in teens, where we try to define our masculinity and our identity around how much female attention we get, how much pussy we get. And so we can say, oh, I've fucked a lot of girls, so therefore I'm more masculine than you. I'm more of a man than you. I have more validation from women, so therefore I'm more of a man than you. And they don't realize the neediness architecture that's there and the validation seeking that's there, because ultimately that puts women above you. It puts women as a measuring stick of value. And that's a very slippery slope to be putting yourself on. Erotic authority, by contrast, is not louder, more aggressive, or more overt. It's quieter, it's slower, more contained. It comes from a man who desires a woman but is not destabilized by her reaction to that desire, whether it's for it or against it. He is interested without being invested in the outcome. He's present without chasing. He's assertive without pleading. That internal posture creates a form of sexual gravity that does not need to announce oneself. The mistake many men make is believing that erotic leadership requires constant sexual signaling. They think desire must be expressed frequently, explicitly, and urgently in order to be felt. In reality, the more a man tries to prove his desire, the more he reveals his dependence on reciprocation. Erotic authority communicates desire without needing reassurance. It allows tension to build instead of rushing to discharge it. And this is what I see a lot of guys do. And this is, again, where I see guys rushing to get to sex, where they say, okay, if I'm not fucking on the first day, if I'm not fucking on the second day that I know you, then I'm not that interested in you. Like, don't waste my time. And what I'm more interested in is, does she want to fuck me by the first day? Does she want to fuck me by the second day? It doesn't mean I'm going to do anything about it. How do I know she's deserving of my dick after 2 days? I can't sort that out immediately. And so if I'm sorting that out immediately, it means I'm ready to give her something very special with little information. I don't see the benefit in that for either of us. Okay? Because everybody knows things that are worked for, things that are earned, things that we have gotten to a point where we are recognized of deserving something become much more powerful. So of course, I'm not going to give away anything of mine for free, except my curiosity. So a man who leads desire sets a tone and remains steady within it. He does not escalate to retrieve or to relieve his anxiety. He escalates when it's aligned, appropriate, and intentional. And that's really based around me feeling out her desire and me sort of feathering that. Okay, sort of like a crossfader on turntables. I can kind of feather this, or like a dimmer light switch, and I can gauge how much I want to do and in accordance with her desire level. So if she has a high desire level, then I have a lot of room to play with. And I can go into meeting that high desire or drop it back down, and I can play with her tension levels. I can play with her anxiety levels. So if she has very high desire and I'm, say, like flirting or we're sex texting or something along those lines, and I can tell that she has a strong desire, I can tell her to, say, like while we're talking, to rub her pussy through her panties. She's not allowed to put her fingers on skin just yet, but the pressure and the direction she absolutely has to do. Right? Because I know that that's going to create the tension. She has the strong desire, but I'm not going to just jump on it. Right? Even in person, it can be the same thing. You see, where you can control that tension because I'm not in this needy place. Not at all. You know, just like a cat who's hunting a mouse. If he was starving, he would just eat it like that. But they're more interested in the tension, in the play. So the cat messes with it to the point where it's just like dragging itself by a single limb across the floor, and then the cat eats it. So even in person, you could be having her just sitting in front of you or sitting right next to you, and you telling her, spread your legs, put your feet up and start rubbing your pussy through your panties, and having her do this and you could either carry on with erotic communication, or you can carry on with just complete benign communication, as though you don't even notice that she's playing with her pussy. And that in itself can increase tension, right? Because she's sitting there like, what is this guy doing? I'm getting like all turned on and stuff, and he's not even paying attention to me sexually. And that in itself can be a turn on, all right? And then you can kind of play with her and just all sorts of like mental stuff. But it gets very powerful when you don't have that neediness, right? It's based around alignment, what's appropriate, what's intentional, and feeling out that desire tension matrix, okay? And this because you're not just jumping on things, this allows you a lot of room to play with. So I love it when a girl has high desire for me, because that gives me so much leeway when it comes to playing. And but if it's low, then I really don't have much wiggle room. Does that make sense? So sexual neediness often shows up disguised as attentiveness, excessive compliments, constant sexual messaging, reassurance seeking disguised as flirtation, over-explaining attraction, repeated attempts to initiate without reading the larger context. These behaviors are not erotic. They are regulating behaviors. They are attempts to manage the man's internal state through the woman's response. 1 second. Okay. Erotic authority never asks a woman to regulate a man emotionally. It does the opposite. It creates a field in which she can relax because she's not being asked implicitly or explicitly to carry his desire for him. She does not feel responsible for keeping him confident, keeping him aroused, or keeping him stable. That relief is deeply attractive. Because what that does is it makes room for more of her feelings, more of her perceptions, more of her emotions, more of her arousal, if she's not even thinking about you. All right? Now that shifts, of course, when you have like a dynamic in the sense where she thinks about you like incessantly. That's different. We're just talking about in the realm of arousal and emotions. So a man with erotic authority understands something fundamental. Desire grows in space, not in pressure. When a man fills every silence with sexual intent, there's no room for anticipation. Remember, I've told you, attention, when guys say, oh, attention's the drug for women, it's not. Attention is their food. Their drug is anticipation. It's tension. That's what kind of makes them scratch and saying, when can I get the next hit? It's anticipation, not just giving her attention. So when he allows space, tension accumulates. Women respond to this not because they enjoy being withheld from, but because they sense containment. Containment allows desire to feel safe rather than consuming. This is where hunger versus appetite becomes critical. Hunger is urgent. It needs to be fed. Appetite is selective. It chooses. A hunger man reaches. An appetitive man waits, observes, and engages deliberately. Women are drawn to an appetite because it signals discernment and self-control. Hunger signals back. Erotic authority also shows up in how a man handles rejection or delay. A needy man collapses internally when a woman is unavailable, distracted, or uninterested. His tone shifts, his warmth withdraws, his frustration leaks out. A man with erotic authority does not punish a woman emotionally for not meeting his desire. He remains grounded. He does not become cold or perform indifference, nor does he become pleading. He simply stays himself. Remember, the mountain is not moved by anything, including her desire or lack of desire for sexual activity. It doesn't matter. This is not detachment, it's sovereignty. Women do not want a man who is indifferent to them. They want a man who is not destabilized by them. That distinction is everything. Detachment feels dismissive. Sovereignty feels safe. One communicates avoidance, the other communicates strength. Erotic authority also reshapes how sex itself unfolds. A needy man moves towards release as his goal, and very quickly. His sexuality is not the destination oriented. He wants confirmation, completion, validation. A man with erotic authority treats sex as a process, not a finish line. He's not rushing toward relief. He is comfortable inhabiting tension. That comfort allows depth, rhythm, and responsiveness to emerge naturally. And not only that, but it redefines or removes the fence of what we consider sex. Because as it is, the way I communicate and the energy that I hold, again, with that forward, backward, tension and release type of energy, I'm basically fucking my girl all the time without even touching her. And so in the moments when we do come together, it's like there's no like warming up. You know, you hear people say like, oh, well, women need to be warmed up. Okay, well, she's been warming indefinitely. So to the point where all I have to do is if I want her to cook, I just turn up that temperature. But it's already sitting at a decent warming temperature. Like from the minute I say hello, right? From the minute I say good morning, right? I mean, if I want to. But and then even if you don't want to, if you've established this over time, it's still lingering there. Like the oven's just never off. But this requires like some other prerequisites and psychological implementations and things of that nature. And we will not be getting into that today. But my point is that when you are not needy, you become less tunnel visioned. And the whole notion of sex and how one can nurture sexual energy and eroticism, it becomes much wider. The definitions of it and what you can do with it become much wider when you become less invested in busting a nut. Because it becomes less linear and much more expansive. So this is why women often describe sex with such men as feeling more immersive, more grounding, more consuming, even when less is happening externally. It's exactly what I just said. Because fucking her happens in her mind and in her heart. The body, I mean, yes, we can always engage our physical bodies, and that's great, right? Those things are lovely. But without the mind and heart, the body just, it doesn't really drive, okay? And this is part of the thing where people think, well, I can get to her soul through her body. And that's not necessarily the case, right? Like, case in point, I've got a student, well, he's not a current student, but he was, and he was in a wheelchair, and he had submissives, all serving him, all ready to go, very happy, okay? So this is, it's a fallacy that we have to engage physically first, all right? All you're doing when you do that is you're showing her that you are ruled by something. And, once a woman realizes that, once she realizes that there is this thing that isn't even conscious, that just kind of like lives between her legs, has control over you. And she's like, and she might put up with it, maybe like if you're really attractive or something like that. But there's something in her core, in her feminine core, that goes, I'm aware that he has this kind of weakness. And I have power over him when I didn't even choose to have power over him. It's just there. And that doesn't taste good. It leaves a bad taste in a woman's mouth. Another critical difference lies in self-reliance. Sexual neediness constantly checks inward. Am I doing this right? Does she want me? Is she enjoying this? Am I enough? Erotic authority is outwardly attuned without being self-obsessed. The man is aware of her, responsive to her, but not evaluating himself through her reactions. That absence of self-monitoring creates confidence that does not need to be performed. Sorry, just checking something. Erotic authority is also inseparable from a man's larger life orientation. A man whose world revolves around a woman will always feel needy, no matter how skilled or confident he appears. A man whose world is anchored in purpose, discipline, and direction carries erotic authority effortlessly because sex is not the place he goes to feel powerful. It is an extension of power he already lives in. This is why men who have purpose often feel more erotic without even trying. Their desire does not consume them because it's not compensatory. It is expressive rather than reparative. They are not using sex to fill a hole. They are sharing from fullness. Women sense this immediately. They feel when a man is drawing from them versus offering to them, offering them an opportunity, offering them a pathway or a doorway or a channel into something deeper, something larger than themselves. One creates depletion, the other creates attraction and expansion. Erotic authority does not mean withholding affection, withholding warmth or desire. It means expressing these things without urgency or dependence. It means allowing a woman to feel chosen rather than needed. Chosen is erotic, needed is heavy. The final distinction is this: sexual neediness seeks reassurance. Erotic authority creates invitation. One asks implicitly to be wanted. The other makes being wanted feel natural. Men who cultivate erotic authority stop chasing desire and start reshaping it. They stop broadcasting hunger and start embodying appetite. They stop asking women to confirm their masculinity and start living it quietly. When that shift happens, something profound changes. Women stop feeling pressured and start feeling curious. They stop feeling responsible and start feeling drawn. They stop bracing and start opening. Erotic authority is not something a man performs in the bedroom. It is something he carries into the room long before anything happens. And once a man understands that, sex stops being something he reaches for and becomes something that comes to him. That's the difference between sexual neediness and erotic authority. Thank you for joining me on my TED Talk. Yeah, so I really hope that makes sense to you about how there's a lot of contradictory information out here telling guys what they should and shouldn't be doing. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing for a guy to say, I would like to have sex on the second date, for example. Okay, I don't think that's bad. The problem, as I explained, shows the issue is internal. That if this desire is running you, is making you do these things, and if she doesn't comply, if she doesn't, give you the goods, then that's going to have some sort of effect on you. It's going to make you feel a certain way. It's going to make you feel bitter. It's going to make you feel rejected. It's going to cause anxiety. This is where the problem is. So it's not the act itself. It's really what the motivation is and how you process it, whether it goes forward or not. And this is what determines weakness from strength, from groundedness to fleetingness. And the same thing occurs through, just dating. Okay, like some guys will be like, oh, taking a girl out on a date that you've just met, like let's say you go to like dinner and dancing, okay? That the guys will look at this, especially young guys, and they'll say, man, that's simping. The guy is total simp. He's just trying to, butter her up and get in her pants, Speaking of getting in pants, little one, you can go beyond your panties now. You can go inside them. So the thing is that it doesn't matter on the action. What matters on the action is is who is doing it. So that you could have two guys doing the same exact thing, right? Dinner and dancing, but one is really needy. The one guy is really needy. He's really hoping for a positive outcome. He's hoping he gets laid. He's hoping his investment pays off. He's hoping that she's not a waste of time. He's hoping to get laid, like, for his efforts. So coming into this, he has this hopeful, uncertain, transactional sort of thing going on. And he's assuming that she understands what this is. Like, oh, she should just assume that I'm expecting sex. So she may not know this, or if she does know this, that puts pressure on her because she doesn't know if she likes you, right? Maybe a little bit, but enough to like open herself to you, become vulnerable to you, be led by you. No, not at all. But the guy who's not in it for anything except just some company because he wants to have a good time and she's cute, and it ends right there. Like, she passed the, say like the 5 initial criteria, right? The sexual attraction, the curiosity, the open-mindedness, the enthusiasm, and the coachability. All right. She's passed those 5 things. That has awarded her time with him. And he's like, all right, cool. She's cute. She's like got a decent enough personality. We're going to have dinner and dance. That's it. Okay. If anything goes beyond this, it means that she's earned it. She's been awarded more of my time. She's been awarded my eroticism, my sensuality, my care, my further direction, because I know I can literally drive a spear right through her brain. And I know the effect that will have, but is she deserving? That's creative effort. That's energy output. That's focus. I'm not going to do that just so I can get in her pants. Why? It doesn't do anything for me. A bit of pussy. It's a little wet hole. That big. What? It doesn't have the punch. It doesn't have the punch that a dick does. I've explained this to guys many times. All right. Like, if you've seen a woman have an orgasm, okay. If you've seen a woman have an orgasm, like if you could see my moon when I tell her, come now. This is different than when a man has an orgasm. So you could, like, woman, her eyes will roll back in her head. She'll speak in tongues. Her body will shake. Sometimes she'll squirt. Sometimes she will become totally rigid, like a corpse, like rigor mortis type shit. I've seen all kinds of interesting responses to orgasm. Okay, sometimes they'll pass out, and never have I experienced or heard of a man experiencing an orgasm like that. So that means the sexual influence that I have as a man is far greater than the sexual influence that a woman has over me. She's not penetrating me, I'm penetrating her. The only time that a woman's sexuality is penetrative is on a psychological and emotional level to the man that is needy, because he has a hole. Holes get filled. Holes get penetrated. That hole within himself, that hole within his identity, such that he has a need to have it filled. Last I knew, girls were the only ones that had holes that needed to be filled. Make sense? So you're setting yourself up to be in the submissive position, to be in the receiving position, regardless of how good your game is in getting her in bed. Because all you're doing is you've become proficient in creating that drug feedback for yourself. Because all you're doing is just setting up ways that are efficient so that you can get the validation that you seek. That's typically all that happens with guys who are like, so-called good with girls. Because they keep having to do it, much like someone who does cocaine or heroin or alcohol. They take the hit and then it goes away. They feel good and then it subsides. And they're like, man, I need another hit. I need another hit. And they go for it again and again and again and again. And then if they have a dry spell, okay, then it does something to them. It makes them feel a certain way. It affects them emotionally and psychologically. It changes their perception of themselves, the world around them, their energy levels, all these sort of things. All because they're not getting attention from girls. Little girls. They're not getting attention from little girls. They can't stick their pee-pee in their holes. And this has a tremendous fallout effect psychologically. Why? Why? They're these sweet, cute little things. You can like hunt them across the street. Why? It makes no sense. So that tells me that there's something else going on that has nothing to do with her specifically. I was listening. Oh, what's up, Dylan? Yes, sir. Shout out to Mr. Justin. The analogy you made on the Manhood is a Skill Set show about the river yielding to the shape of the water bed, I thought was brilliant. I've been thinking about that. Oh, hell yeah. Yep. Yeah, the shape of the water takes the shape of the river, of the, what do they call that? The bank, right? The banks of the river shape the river, okay? I mean, unless you're very passive about it, right? Because the path of least resistance is actually what makes a river crooked. You know, if you look at the Mississippi River, it's fucking crazy. It started straight at some point, and then the land yielded to it, okay? So it's more so like being an aqueduct, where you say, nope, it is flowing this way. And that's the challenging part, because guys are afraid of their authority. Like, they have the desire, they have the ideas, you know, maybe they have all kinds of fantasies where they envision themselves communicating in a certain way, or they've read about it in a novel or something along those lines. And they have this inside them, and they want to go for it, but they're afraid of expressing that authority, right? Because the authority starts setting up those walls in the aqueduct and says, this is what we're doing. This is what I want. This is what I would like to see. This is what I want to feel. This is what I want you to feel. And they get afraid, because setting up concrete walls of an aqueduct, it takes commitment. It takes conviction. And what comes along with conviction and commitment is the possibility of fallout, of failure, of rejection. And so guys, they try to remain fluid. They try to remain flexible and bending and moving and weaving according to what they are trying to read about her on the fly. And what's funny is that actually unsettles her, making her more volatile and less settled. So the more stable you are, the more likely she is to become more stable. The more fluid and unpredictable you are, the more fluid and unpredictable she will become. It's just yin yang principles, like this universal shit. Just, it's true all the time in all spaces. There's always that balance, always that seeking of equilibrium. So, you know, it's up to us to be the ones on the frontier. I mean, unless you're truly a submissive guy, which is completely okay if that's how you are, and you expect the woman to create the vessel, to create the aqueduct, to create the shape, to create the commitment and the conviction of saying to you, this is how things will go. And that's fine. Some guys love that. They love a strong woman who, when they're making out, she's like, I want you to fuck me now, right? And that's great. Like, you know, some guys just love the idea of like a very sexually assertive girl, you know? My moon, she would never say that. She would never say that. She would want to be fucked, and she would hope that I would do the thing. And she would, I would have to make her say it. And it would have to be a question. I would, you look like you want to be fucked right now. And she'd probably go, mm-hmm. And that's the extent of it. And I would have to make her repeat after me. Say it. Say it. Daddy, will you please fuck me? please, no. And then see, it's because I like that, because I like tension. I like to have those levers in my hands, because then I could say, I'm sorry, but that didn't sound very convincing. You're gonna have to try harder. I don't think you want it enough. Right? And then like all the while, like have her playing with herself. Right? Now, you know what? I don't think you're ready. You're going to have to suffice with a dildo until I'm convinced. So having her like fuck herself and then say, ask again, because I don't believe you. I don't think you want it enough. Right? And that can be driven and driven and driven, like to the point of tears and frustration, even anger. Right? That's what I like. I like that, being able to control that tension, right? And maybe not always go so forceful. You can bring it back and shift it and bring in some sensuality. You could bring in some softness. You can bring in some romance. Like you can be very chameleon-like, or like bring in the spirit of the dragon, you know, like in like Kung Fu, like animal ideas, the dragon was able to shapeshift between all the different animals. What was it? The tiger, the snake, the crane. There was 5: leopard and the monkey, right? Those were the 5 original animal forms. But the dragon could shift between all of them. And by reading out like how she is and mix with what I want to do. Okay. It's really interesting. I really encourage people to, like, if you're young enough, like if your body isn't like beat up the way mine has become, I really encourage you to get into some kind of combat sport, like one where there's like actual contact, you know, like nothing like flashy, like sport karate where you're just kind of like doing katas all day. Something where you have interaction, right? So it could be like Greco-Roman wrestling, it could be jiu-jitsu, it could be MMA, it could be Thai boxing, Western boxing, savate, you know, anything where there's like actual like interplay between warriors. You learn so much about this because it's not just about what I want to do and having this like driven focus on like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You can have these in your mind just kind of like ready and floating, but you also have to be very much aware of what their intention is and be seeing like where their energy is and where their intentions are going. And that might be able to be turned and flipped into something, or you have to avoid it. You know, this is where like, you know, all the footwork comes into play, where you can create openings by way of just shifting bodies rather than like trying to force an opening or to blast through their defenses. So there's a lot to it. And just the funny thing is that, you know, you hear that phrase that like, you know, sex, everything's about sex except sex, but sex is actually about power. And so is combat. Combat is this interplay between power poles. And, you know, and if you really look at it, it's very much like it's a dance of energy. Sex is the same way. So it's not just about like, this is what I want to do and just barrel through with your plan. Okay. Because even if you have like, just say like a very submissive girl and, who's just like all about you, all about it, they will go along with, okay, but not always emotionally, not always energetically. And, you know, if you are interested in creating, like an immersive experience for the both of you, then you kind of have to be sensitive and aware of those shifts and where those levels are in terms of her mind, her emotions, how her body is responding and reacting, and interplay that with your desire, with your plan. So it's like being a good lover, being a dominant, being a leader, and I would say being a man has very much to do with those two realms, those two spheres, and seeing like where they intersect. What are those diagrams called? You know, you have like circles, like maybe like 3 circles, and they kind of, you can show where they overlap. And this is the common area that you have to really pay attention to. So, but it's kind of like that. It's called Venn diagram. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. Venn diagram. Right? Yes. Yeah. It's a Venn diagram. Take me back to high school. What's up, Samuel? I am coming to a realization that I took on the narrative of getting her to bed fast. How does one go about cultivating another mindset if at the moment I'm just out here experimenting and hooking? I think you mean hooking up, not hooking. You're selling your dick. Well, that's good. Okay. I mean, realization is the first stage of change. If you've studied anything around addiction, if you studied about recovery for addiction, the first thing is the realization that you have a problem and saying, okay, this is something that's out of my control. I have a problem and I'm not in control of it. I thought I was. I thought this is what I wanted, but really I'm just completely owned by this thing. And this is an issue for me. And as far as addiction is concerned, it's an issue for other people as well, because we don't live in bubbles. I mean, unless you're an addict who just lives in a cabin in the middle of the woods with no friends, and that's entirely possible. But yeah, coming to that realization that you're taking on the narrative of getting her to bed fast, I would say the first part of that is looking at and understanding what your motivation is for that. What was your motivation? Why did you want to get a girl to bed so fast? And I can say the answer, and you can understand this logically of saying, oh, well, it was because of validation. And then, you're going to want to peel that back because there's more delamination to happen. When I was working on this home, I was helping a friend of mine, and he's a contractor, and it was a very old house built in the late 1800s here in New York. And we had ripped up carpet, and then under the carpet there was linoleum, and so we had these scrapers and stuff, and we rip up linoleum, and you could tell by the design and the color style that it was another decade. So it was there was the 90s look, and then the 80s, the 70s, 60s, and we would just keep going and going and going through all these different styles of floor linoleum until we got to the hardwood floors underneath. And so you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to delaminate the reasons why these perspectives and beliefs came about in the first place, and understand, okay, and usually it has something to do with our parents or, some sort of caregiver or lack thereof, where we figured out, okay, I need to do this in order to get something so that I can feel better about myself, so I can feel valid, so I can feel important, so I can feel loved, so I can feel paid attention to or cared for. And if we don't ever heal past those things, we remain in that youthful, emotional, developmental stage, despite being in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on. And that's the issue. This is what a lot of women experience. And they say, wow, I'm dealing with a man baby. You heard that phrase before. Where they realize, okay, this is a grown man. He's 38 years old. But the way he's emotionally responding to me, it feels off. I don't feel like I'm with a man. I feel like emotionally, psychologically, the way he's handling this, it seems like the way a boy would with his mom. With his mom who's not giving him all the attention that he thinks he deserves. And this is where women get set off. And they're like, oh, okay. And right there, the submission gates close. Her legs may stay open, okay, because maybe you got a nice dick, maybe she's very attracted to you, maybe there's other things going on in your life that make you very appealing, but that submission gate, it closes. Because in order for submission, real submission to happen, it requires her to feel psychologically and emotionally safe. Not necessarily her body, but her mind and her emotions. This must happen. It's an ingredient that cannot exist. It's like trying to bake a cake without flour of some kind. You can't do it. You can't have a cake with just icing and sugar. You need that base. The base for submission, for the submission cake is trust, which comes from the safety from her mind and her emotions. And that's the only way to do it. You cannot have real, true submission. And on that note, I've designed like these documents basically laying out the 6 layers and 6 stages of submission and dominance, and both going from like the performative to the completely embodied, immersed identity. And there's different like levels all the way through the different phases, and there's no like real hierarchy to them, okay? Because it's not like there's this goal to have, you know, the woman to be this complete slave where she just doesn't even think at all about herself and she just lives for your will, and every single decision, I mean, beyond her like automatic things like blinking and breathing and using the bathroom, and maybe even using the bathroom is something that she needs permission for. The, you know, like, that's not realistic, but it can exist, right? It's just a matter of like, well, should it? Are there variables around that allow this to happen in a very healthy way? Okay, so that someone can thrive in their position of being such an immersed slave. Okay, and conversely, like as a dom, like, is there? Oh shoot, I didn't realize I've got a client in 10 minutes. I thought this was tomorrow. You know, conversely, how a a dom, can he be that immersed? Does he have the first of all, like the emotional, the wherewithal? Does he have the skill set? Does he have the knowledge? Is he grounded so much that he can immerse himself and assume that much responsibility? Does he have a job? Does he have a home to take care of? Does he have animals? Does he have kids? Does he have projects? Does he have hobbies? Like, how much can he just completely devote towards the running of this entity that is now like grafted to him, you know? So you understand, like, there's different levels, and be careful what you wish for, because, you know, once you go in there, sometimes it's hard to go back psychologically, right? Sometimes there can be damage if you go in and then come out. I think especially for the submissive. So it must be regulated. And again, this falls on you. Like, you can take, like, if there's a woman who's open and she loves you and she respects you and she desires you, you can take her very, very far, to the point of relinquishing everything that she thinks is important to her and replacing it with only you. And that can be a very dangerous thing to play with. Like, it shouldn't be played with at all. It's very serious. I'm not saying it's bad, but it just should be treated with the utmost respect. Because understand this, and I'll leave you with this, guys, about submission. The more open and the more vulnerable she becomes, the softer and more pliable her psychology becomes, the more pliable her will becomes, more pliable her emotions become, where you become her locus. The more this happens, the more fragile she becomes, where like the slightest missteps can cause great damage. Okay, so it's like, if you look at like the really, really fine glassware, the finer the glassware, the thinner the glass. So you have to treat it really, really well. Like, in all instances, whether you're drinking from it, cleaning it, having it on display, drying it, polishing it, whatever, every single interaction you have with really, really fine glassware must be gentle and aware. It doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. It just means you have to take certain precautions and a certain way of utilizing it. Okay? If you look at like cheap glass, like cheap wine glasses, that shit you can drop on the floor and it'll just bounce because the glass is so fucking thick. Okay? But really expensive, you can, if you like clink your glasses too hard, it'll shatter. So it's that sort of thing. So the finer you get with her submission, right? Or the finer she allows herself to get, the more gentle you must be, the more fragile she becomes. So that means you must be very aware and very deliberate and knowledgeable of how to utilize this. All right, so that she actually grows within that state, and not in this position of like, well, fuck, I just better just wrap her in bubble wrap, wrap her psychology in bubble wrap so nothing ever gets to her. Well, now no one's having a full experience. So just keep this in mind, okay? But know that that's not the only level. That's like the very extreme level, okay? There's 5 other ones, and maybe in another show I'll go over those. It's good stuff, and maybe I'll make the documents available, maybe for like free download or something like that. That might be a good, yeah, I'll do that. That'll be a good plug. Cool. Indeed, at that stage, there's such a great responsibility is handled with a lot of care. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, guys are like, oh, I want that. It's like, I don't think you realize what it is you want. You want the feeling of a woman being like, yes, sir, I love you. Tell me what to do. Your desire is my commands. Like, cool, But they don't realize all the subtlety that is the foundation that's underneath that. And it's not a concrete foundation. It's like a foundation made out of like marshmallows and jello. So, all right, guys, I got to get out of here. Pardon the abrupt exit, but I do have a client in 5 minutes. So I appreciate you guys joining me this afternoon. Have yourself a great day, and we will see you on the next one. Take it easy.